Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Thursday, April 10th. So, what are we going to talk about today? Mark brought up some good points there the other day in his comments of should we have a rewards program for customers and more in line of our regular customers. So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and if you didn't already know, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Thursday, April 10th of 2025. So what are we talking about today? Well, Mark brought up a good point the other day, and he was talking about having a rewards program for our regular customers, and that is a great idea. Because so often what I see is businesses not taking care of their regular customers the way they should and offering new incentives to new customers, yet not offering it to the ones that have been coming to them year after year after year. And my take on that is you need to take care of your regular customers first, all right? It's a lot cheaper and easier to retain customers than it is to try to go out and get new ones. But here are a couple ways that you can actually lose good customers, and that is to decide on doing a special. So much off for every new customer that comes through our door, but not doing anything for your regular customers. And a lot of people tell me, well, they're going to come anyways. No, they're not. All your customers, whether it be returning customers, future customers, are all watching how you do things. If they're coming back year after year after year, they feel like you're treating them fairly, the prices are reasonable, or they have no place else to go. And they don't want to do it themselves. So is it a bad thing to try to offer a certain percentage off for new customers? No. But you need to give it to your regulars too. Your regulars need to come first. If you're going to offer any percentage off of a service, you need to start with your base. You need to keep your base happy. Because the way I look at that is my regular customers are just one step away from going to the next shop. And I know you're going to tell me, well, if you're doing good quality work, that will keep them there all the time. Not necessarily. It's not. And it's not all about price either. It's not because you're cheapest is why they're going to go to you. Sometimes that backfires. That people equate your hourly rate with your educational level of how you know how to do things and do it right. Because that goes a long ways, right? We've talked about that numerous times here on the channel. That you can't learn on the backs of your customers, right? And your customers have an expectation that you at least know how to do certain things, right? And you know how to do them at a fairly reasonable amount of time. Most customers understand that. What they won't understand is if it costs $200 to have a service done through you and they had Joe Schmo do it for $120. You're going to say, well, the hourly rate was probably cheaper. No, it wasn't. They were actually more an hour. But the guy in that shop was like Jason, Travis, and Claude, where they could knock things in and out in a hurry based on the hours spent doing it. See, you could spend all day on a job and still not get it right if you don't know what you're doing. And if you've been doing it very long, you've figured out shortcuts that doesn't affect the quality of the work going out. You've learned how to do things. And that may be simply starting with draining the oil, because you know that takes the longest amount of time, right? You warm the machine up, bring it in, take the plug out to drain the oil, pull the dipstick, lay it on top of the flywheel, and let it start draining. And while it's draining, you go about doing other tasks, like replacing the fuel filter, replacing the spark plugs, blowing off the deck. See, you're not just standing there waiting for the oil to finish running. But if you don't know, you're standing there watching the oil run, and you're billing for that time. Whereas a good mechanic has got 8 to 10 tasks all done while that oil is draining. So who is worth technically more an hour? It's that guy that's doing 8 to 10 tasks, right? And not the one standing there watching the oil drain, like watching paint dry on the wall. So you can't learn on the backs of the customers. So the price of the overall cost does take into effect with customers, right? And it gets around. People will start comparing what it costs to have their service done. I tell customers you can't compare apples to oranges. On one mower, the blades may be $20 a piece. We'll call it 20, and 3 blades cost them $60. On others, the blades may be $12, $13 a piece. You see what I'm saying? So the cost of the blades could be different. The cost of the air filter could be different. The things that remain constant in my shop are usually the oil filter, fuel filter, and spark plugs, and engine oil. All 4 of those remain the same. And if you haven't already started, what I recommend, and I think Jason is the one that brought it up quite a while back when I started doing it, was I used to have 10W30 regular and then 10W30 synthetic. And I just went to all synthetic. I figure it's easier. That way, I know that it's better for the engine, and what little bit more it costs saves me time trying to figure out what the customer wants, whether they want synthetic or not. So the oil even costs the same. But it's when you start looking at the extra parts. And some jobs are going to be where the oil or the air filter just simply needs to be blown out and not replaced. If that's the case, they save that amount of money. But if they're comparing it with a neighbor that had to have the air filter replaced because it was 5 years old and there was no way you could blow it out and see any kind of daylight, and you could smell it overfueling because it was acting like the choke was on. See, that's what happens when the air filter starts getting plugged. It starts acting like a choke mechanism. It'll actually start flooding that engine out because it's not getting enough air to fuel mixture. That's the key. And you can't run it without a filter because now it's getting too much air per fuel mixture. They were built with the idea that it was a clean, blown out air filter. That's how they're going to run the best. So not every repair job is going to be the same cost. But getting back to how do we take care of our good customers, our regular customers, and also take care of possibly finding new customers to cause them to have incentives to come in. Here's a couple ways that I've done it in the past that have worked. One is to reward a customer that passed on your name to somebody else. If I hear somebody else say, Betty told me about you and she's really happy with what you do and I'd like to have you do my lawnmower this spring, Betty gets a discount. And what do I mean Betty gets a discount? I mean Betty went out and helped me bring in a new customer. And you're going to see on that bill, when it gets ready to be handed to Betty, is you're going to see a discount. And it's handwritten a discount. And why? Thank you, Betty, for putting my name out to another customer that we just signed on. That's how you take care of your good customers. And that's how you'll end up getting more customers, because then your customers that you have also are seeing not only are they getting good quality work, but they're also getting a discount by getting your name out. They're being rewarded for telling other people. You see what I'm saying? But if you do this special for just new customers of 20% off the cost of a service, and you're not taking care of your regular customers by giving them that 20% off either, what's the sense of being a regular customer if it's cheaper to be a new customer? You see what I'm saying? You have to be careful with that. I believe in running specials, and taking care of your customers. Now, one of you I mentioned here a while back, because I'm not taking credit for it, of how you run a special if you get it into me before April 1st. In the spring of the year, if it gets here before April 1st, I will give you a 10% off your service, a 5% off your service. And that includes the oil filter, fuel filter. It's the total bill, 5 or 10% off, if you have it here by April 1st. And what are you doing by doing that? You're getting machines in there before you get onslaughted during your regular mowing season. Because after April 1st, things start to pick up, right? Usually you can start cutting grass the second week in May in our area. Other areas you're mowing grass year round. But in our area, April 1st is kind of the cutoff, because after April 1st, your regular customers are already thinking about getting their stuff in to get them serviced. So that's a way to lure in some of your regular customers or even new customers to come to you before April 1st. Fall specials. Absolutely. We use that. Instead of having everybody coming all in the spring of the year and it's feast or famine, you're feasting in the spring and then it's famine the rest of the time, offer a discount to have their lawnmower serviced in the fall of the year before they put them away. That way, A, they get it cheaper, B, they avoid the onslaught unless they're going to try to get it to you by April 1st. And I can tell you right now, it's the 10th of April right now, and we've got 3 inches of snow on the ground out there. See, in our area, you never know. I've seen snow in May, actually. So that's another way, is to have a fall special of a certain percentage off. And you're going to have to make it enough to get customers to think about it, right? You can't give like a 2%, 3%. I do in the fall a 10%. And you're like, wow, that's quite a bit. Yeah, but it's more money that I can collect, because you have to look at the long game. So I'm looking at from January 1st to December 31st in that calendar year. I can't take and go by my April 8th through the second week of May and dictate how I'm going to do my stuff by that month, that 30, 40 days of time, right? I've got to look at what is the overall. Because you have so many things that are taking place on a calendar year. You may be paying a monthly lease or a mortgage. You may be paying a heat for the wintertime for a monthly thing. You may be paying electric monthly, phone monthly. All these things are being done on a calendar year, right? So if you feast for a 30 to 40 day period, is that feast enough to carry you for the whole calendar year? And my answer is no, it's not. We have to be busy doing something here at the shop every month in order to have it be for us anyways, okay for the calendar year. We're trying to feed 2 people, right? And even right to today, we're still on half days. I've got 2 tractors that are out in the yard on one side, but one ATV. Plus, I got a tractor coming in Saturday that haven't been touched. But I've got 2 tractors that are going out the end of this week that are in the shop. Claude's finishing up the brakes on a ATV. Those 3 will come out to make room for the next bunch to go into the shop, and that'll keep my yard pretty much emptied. And I've got a lawnmower I have to pick up on Wednesday. That's one of our regulars. So you need to keep something out there to work on at all times. And you don't have to work like you normally work during that feast time. You can kind of tone it down a little bit where you have time to do good work. I'm not saying you don't do good work during, your April to the end of May. It's just you're fast paced. You don't notice the little things, and you don't really have the time to really give it a front to back. And I'm not trying to say don't give it a front to back. I'm just saying you're going to miss things that you don't normally miss during the slower times. Where, like yesterday, we spent going around to those 3 pieces of equipment that we're working on in the shop and finding other stuff that we could do that doesn't cost our customer much, but will make their life easier. One was on a 8N tractor in the shifter, and it was all loose. It's because the keyway had gone. I don't know how they shifted it, but they did. But we took the time to take it apart, put a new keyway in it, re-put it back together again, had to stack some washers on it to take the play out of it. But now the shift is tight, so that it's easy to shift it. So the customer's going to notice that, and what did it cost them? Basically nothing, because we didn't spend that much time on it. Maybe 5 minutes, and the cost of 2 washers, squat. I'll just zing that, and the customer will get that as a benefit. So in the comments, what do you guys do? Do you offer incentives to your regular customers? Do you offer specials? And if you're doing a special for new customers, are you taking care of your old? And I think that you understand when I say a seasoned mechanic versus a newer mechanic. You can't learn on the backs of your customers. That seasoned mechanic is doing 8 things while that oil is draining. A new mechanic is watching the oil drain. And that customer shouldn't pay for you to watch the oil drain. They should be paying for you to do at least 5 or 6 instead of the 8 to 10 that the season is doing. If you understand that. So on that note, you guys have a great Thursday, and we'll see you here bright and early tomorrow morning. Again, put it in the comments. Things that you do, or if you don't have a shop, what are things that you could do to bring in more work? I'm curious to hear it. All right, guys.